Hi everyone, and welcome to the next lesson in the series on Django fundamentals, where I'll be teaching you how to configure your AWS S3 buckets with your Django project, so they both in sync together. Okay. Now the first thing that I want us to do is to go ahead and simply register a user and upload a picture the normal way for a user. So let's do that normally. So let's go to our application and let's register a user. So I'm just going to register a random user here. Okay, and let's see what we have already. So we're going to register a user, let him log in. Okay, so at the moment he has a default picture, which we assigned, as you can see here. If we go to our to-do app and we go to models.py, we can see here we assigned him a default image, a default profile picture under our images here. Okay. Then we were able to go to profile management and actually update this person's profile picture, like so. Okay, there we go. It's been updated, and we can also see it, that particular image that we updated the user with has been stored in our images folder here, or images directory. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. Now, what we're going to do now is configure this whole process with Amazon S3. Okay, but the first thing we want to do is we want to clear all our records and objects first, okay? So we don't have any backlash or any issues. So we want to log out. Okay, and we want to just go to our admin page. Okay, log in with your super user. And we're going to delete all our users except for the super user, of course. Now we only have one user here. So go ahead and delete all your users. Okay, and of course it will delete all the objects that are related to it. And that's perfect. Now we can go ahead and double check this. So we have nothing in profiles, and in tasks we have nothing. Good, this is good. Okay, great. So that is the first part. So we just wanted to clean up everything there before we move on to the next step. All right, so let's head over to AWS. Okay, so we can go to our AWS Management Console. Now, please make sure that you are logged in with your IAM user that we created in the previous lesson. Okay, so that was the lesson just before. And we can see here that we are using our IAM user. Because of the fact that we see that ampersand symbol, this indicates we're using an IAM user. Please do not use your root account, all right? So let's go ahead to Amazon S3. So we can bookmark this here. So this is the next part, and we can go to S3. Okay, great. Okay, now the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and create an Amazon S3 bucket. All right, so with this S3 bucket, we'll be able to store something called objects. Now, in AWS terms, with cloud computing, objects are simply your files. And these files can be, for example, music files, normal PDF files, or it can even be images or videos. Okay, now we need to give our bucket a name here. So I'm just going to simply say my bucket, and I'm just going to put my name and my year of birth. Okay, so I'm just going to end it off with 96. Okay, you can choose a region. I prefer to stick with US East Ohio, US East 2. This is the best for, testing. And we can scroll down here, and you'll see here we'll get something that says block all public access. Now, since we are going to be uploading not just images to our S3 bucket, we're also going to be uploading all of our static files. So in other words, we are going to upload everything here in our static directory. We're going to upload our CSS files, our images, and our JavaScript files to Amazon S3. Now, as you know with static files, okay, they need to be shown to the public, okay, because that is how it's going to be able to render. So we need to turn this off and acknowledge that we are allowing all users to access our files. Okay, this has to be done. Okay, so bucket versioning, we won't go over that. Okay, you can go ahead and invoke encryption if you want. All right, I'm going to enable server-side encryption, and we can create our bucket. Okay, so this should be relatively fast. There we go. Our bucket has been created. Great. All right, so there's something else we need to set. So we want to make sure that anyone in the world can actually access our static files. Okay, so anyone can access them. So to do this, okay, we need to set an extra sort of property here. So we need to go to permissions, and we need to create our own JSON bucket policy. Okay, so don't worry, it's very simple. So we can just say edit. Okay. And what we need to do is we can just open this another tab called policy generator. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to create a policy for us, okay? So it's sort of like a permission policy, okay? So it's going to allow what users can and cannot do. Right, so now the step one, we need to select a policy type. Now in this case, we're going to use an S3 bucket policy. Okay, the effect would be allow, and the principal is going to be to everyone. Now everyone is going to have the ability to, let's see the action, and it's going to be reading from our S3 bucket. Now in terms of APIs, that would be deemed as a get object. So let's look here. So we may need to scroll a bit. Okay, there we go, get object. So we can just simply check that box here. So we want to choose the API type of get object. Okay, next we need to go ahead and set our ARN. Now if we go to the previous tab here, our ARN is shown just up here. So we can just copy this here and we can paste it here. Okay, perfect. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to allow all of our users, so we're going to allow all of our users to read from our S3 bucket, and the ARN we just need to say for all our files, we can just say /, and then we can just put star. Okay, great. Now we can go ahead now and say add statement. Okay, so here is our policy, so we can generate it. Perfect. Now what we can do is just copy this here, close it, go back, and we can paste it here. Okay, so just make sure that you just backspace and make sure there's no spaces here for the first line. It always does that. And you can scroll down now and say save changes. Before I do that, I just want to close this info panel so there's more space. So we can save our changes, and there we go, our policy is set. And we can now see it's public here and public here. So now it's publicly accessible, and this was the extra step that we wanted to follow. Right, so now the next step, we need to configure Django with Amazon S3. Okay, so there are a few things we need to install, a few packages and such. So we can go back to our application, let's open our CMD, and we can stop our server for now. Now the first thing we want to install is called Django storages. So this is going to allow us to work with our Amazon S3 bucket. So you can just say here pip. Okay, before I carry on, just remember to install this package in your virtual environment. Please remember to do that. So let's go. So pip install Django storages. Okay, so make sure that you install that. Okay, perfect. Now CLS, that's just to clean the browser, the terminal. And the next thing we want to do is we want to install the Amazon SDK for Python development. And this specific package is also going to allow us to work with Amazon S3 as well. So it is called pip install Boto 3. Okay. All right, so make sure you install those two packages. Perfect. Now we need to go to our project settings.py. And under apps, we need to go ahead and just add storages. So it won't be Django storages, it will just be storages. So just be sure to add that to your application. Okay, right. So the next thing we want to do is, configure a little bit more with Amazon S3. So there's a few things we need to configure. Okay, so here, of course, we need to have our access key and secret access key. And like I said before, please do not share this with anyone. It's best to store this in environment variables. Okay. And like before, like I mentioned in the previous video, I will go ahead and in this video again, I will put an article on my blog where I wrote about how to create environment variables, which I'll store in this. I'll put a link in the description as well to how you can utilize environment variables. Okay, so just make sure that you set your access key here and your secret access key here. Now, if you're unsure about this part, my previous video also explains how to obtain an access key and a secret access key. So if you're wondering about that, just see the video before this, which will be on configuring an IAM user. Okay, so we can go ahead now and set a few things up here. So let's remove this. And the first thing we need to do is we need to declare a variable here called AWS storage bucket name. And within these quotes, we can go ahead and just copy our bucket name. So this is our bucket. And we can paste it in like that. Perfect. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to set our default file storage and our static files storage. Okay, now these are going to be identical, and this will, of course, allow us to render all of our files from AWS instead of it being rendered from our static folder. So that's what we're going to do here. So we can just simply say storages.backends. Now, this must be exactly the same as mine. .backends.s3 boto3.s3 Boto, and it is case sensitive, unfortunately, storage. Perfect. Now what you can do is you can copy this exact same code here and just paste it under static file storage. Okay. So just be sure everything's correct, and it does matter here, like I said, was case sensitivity, so just make sure that you bear that in mind. Okay. Now, the next thing that we want to do here is we need to set our custom domain. Okay. Now, if we go to our project here, actually, and what I'm going to do actually, let's just comment this out for the moment, okay, so we don't have any issues, because I want to explain to you this part. So the custom domain. Now, if we go to our project and we were to right click and say, let's see, view page source. Okay, let's have a look here. We can see at the moment, if we open this up here, we are now rendering our CSS here from our static folder under CSS styles.css. So if we go and check here, we are, for example, let's say our index.html. Let's open this. Okay, so this is going to be rendered through static, CSS, and styles.css. Okay. And that's exactly what we see in the URL here. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to go to settings.py and create sort of a custom domain for our AWS S3 objects, okay? Because we are going to store all of these static files in our bucket here, okay? But what we want to do is just set a custom domain to link where that object is. So we know that, hey, okay, it's not on our static folder here locally on our project. It is now instead here on our S3 bucket. So we will configure a custom domain for that. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, now before we move on with this, we need to actually go ahead and upload our files. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I just want to refresh this. Okay, so we can go to my bucket on O96. Okay, and we are going to go ahead and upload some files. Okay, now the first thing that we want to do is just minimize here, and we can just go ahead and open our project directory. So it will be development, and within development we'll have Taskly, and we'll have our static folder here. So what we want to do is simply open our static folder, and we have, as you can see here, our CSS, our images, and our JavaScript. Now what I want us to do is go to images for the moment, and I want us to delete everything here just for the moment. So delete everything in your static images folder. Perfect, so make sure this is empty. Okay, in terms of our CSS folder, we do not delete anything, we can keep that as is. And our JS folder, we can keep it as is. Just make sure you delete all the images here in your images folder under static, so just be sure of that. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and copy this here and move it out. Okay, so if we go now to our application, we can now see our static directory is empty, and that's exactly how we want it to be. Right, so what we can do now is we can actually go ahead and click on our bucket. So my bucket on O96 was the one here. So we can check that here. And we're here now. Okay, let's close this info panel. And we can simply drag our files here. So we could say our objects. So I'm just going to move this like this. And what we can do is we can simply just drag all of these here and move them like so. Okay, and it's going to upload for us. Everything will be set and ready, and we can just say upload. So we're going to upload everything, and I'll show you how it looks like. We can say close, let's maximize this, and we can see here it's just like in our project directory, similar structure now. Okay, so we have our CSS folder, images folder, and JS folder. So if we open them up, we can see, okay, we have styles.css in here. Okay, let's go to images. We have nothing here. That's perfect. And here, our JS, we have nothing there as well. Well, we have a JavaScript file there, sorry. Okay, so everything's set there. Okay, so that is all set. Perfect. Now, what we can do is we can now go ahead and just uncomment this. And now we need to set our custom domain here, okay, to actually link to these our objects. So, for example, let me open this here. Okay, in AWS, we can see the URL here, okay, like so. But we want to configure this, okay, in our Django project. That's why we are setting a custom domain URL. So we can go back, okay, back to the bucket, and let's do just that. So here under S3 custom domain name, we're just going to simply add some formatting. So I'm just going to put a percentage symbol here, s.s3.amazon.aws.com. Okay, and I'm just going to add here single quotes. Okay, then we're going to append that to our AWS bucket name. So AWS storage bucket name, like so. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen now. So everything's appended. Now let's go to our application. Right, we must just turn on our server. So let's make sure we turn that on. Okay, let's keep this on. Okay, perfect. Let's refresh. Okay, good. Let's go to register. And you can see now everything's looking okay, but let's double check this. Let's say view page source and see where this is coming from. And we can see here now our custom domain here is now pointing to AWS, like so. Okay, so you can see it's working perfectly. All right, so we can now see that we are now hosting our static files, which is great. Okay, so that is the first part. Now comes the interesting part, which probably most of you are wondering and waiting for. Okay, so let's say that we want to go ahead and, upload user files, and we want to have a default user. Now, as of this moment, okay, if we go to our bucket and under images, we have nothing here. Okay, so let's say we wanted to go ahead and create a user. So let's see what it's going to look like with nothing. Let's register. And I'm just going to say test1@gmail.com, and I'm going to show you what's going on here. Now you'll notice our default picture will be gone, of course. So let's just register here. Test1, let's log in. And you can see here we have nothing here. So if I were to view the page source here, we can see here we cannot find anything relating to a default.jpg. Okay, now we want to clear this up. So we want to solve two things. The first thing is we want to have our default image being served from AWS, and we want to see it in our application. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing that we want to do is we want to actually allow our user to go to profile management and upload their profile picture. And this profile picture, we want it to be stored in our images folder here on AWS. Okay, so let's do just that. So let's close this here, and we can log out for now and leave it like so. Let's close this policy generator, and let's do just that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and upload a default user picture for our user. So what we can do is go to AWS, and what I'm going to do is this default user, I'm going to add this to our S3 bucket here, and I'm not going to store it in a folder. I'm just going to store it in the bucket. Okay, so I'm going to do it like this. So let's upload it here. So I'm not going to upload it anywhere else. So we can just say upload. Perfect. And I have it now in my default by my object here, and not in any folder. Just bear note of that. It's not in a folder. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is I can go back to my application. Okay. And I can go straight to models.py to set this. So if we go to to-do, models.py, and we can now go ahead and set the default image extension. Now, the reason this is going to render from AWS is because we configured everything here from default files and storage and the S3 custom domain. So our models.py is clever and would figure this out here in this attribute for profile pic. So we can switch this over specifically to what we set here. So we set here default -user.png. So let's go ahead and just set this here. Like so, perfect. Now what we can do is we can now log in again with that specific user. I believe it was test1, wasn't it? And we can log in. Okay, and we can see now that nothing's being rendered. So if we go to view page source, and we see the issue, it's still rendering that old default file which doesn't exist. So what we would need to do is to go ahead and delete this user. Okay. And from now on, whenever a user registers for an account, they will be assigned this default user PNG every time. Okay, so let's create a user called test2. Okay, let's do this. And register the user. Right, let's log in as test2. Perfect. And now you can see it. So if we go to view page source again, it's now rendering this default user, which we assigned here. Now, as you can see in the URL, okay, we are not in a folder. We are, for example, opening this user. We're viewing this user just from the object itself. We're not in a specific file. So, for example, if we were to look at this one here, this file here, we'll see we are in a folder under styles.css. In this case, we are just in our root. Okay, so I just wanted to keep that clear for you. Okay, perfect. So let's close these up. And what we can do now is we need to find a way for a user to change his profile picture. So let's log out for now and let's set some stuff up. Okay, so what we want to do, it's going to be very simple. We can simply just go ahead and create a parameter here. So I'm just going to say here upload _to double quotes, and I'm going to set a location for this upload to go. So whenever a user decides to upload an image on top of this default user.png, I want this to go somewhere. So I can go to AWS and I can see here, okay, right, I want this specific, whenever a user updates his profile picture, which is going to do, I want this to be sent to the images folder here. Okay, now since our field here, profile pic, is integrated with AWS, it will automatically know where to send this. Okay, so what's going to basically happen is we are going to go to this specific domain, okay, which is going to lead to our object. And then we are simply here going to just add a / on top of this URL. So that's simply what we're doing. So here I'm just going to set it to images. Oh, yeah, images. Let's set it here. Okay, / my bad. So we need to add that just after here so we know where it's going. And this will be it. So we can save that. And we can actually go and test this out. So let's go and log in with that user. Okay. And we can go to profile management and let's update the profile picture. So here I'm just going to choose pic 2 and update the profile picture. Okay, this should take a few seconds. And there we go. So if we go to view the page source and we scroll down, we can see now it is currently in our images folder, pic2.jpg. Now if we go here, we can refresh, and we will see it's under images, and there is pic2, and that is that. So this is how you can go ahead and upload your static files to Amazon S3, okay? And you can also go ahead and include your images as well, so your media files as well. Okay, so I hope this was helpful and that you learned a lot. And of course, thank you for watching. I appreciate everyone here. Okay, so that's it.